Today, successful retirement planning. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics Wealth Notice Post, covering finance and property news with a distinctively Australian flavour. Today I'm joined by Tim Fuller from Nucleus Wealth. Hi Tim.
Hi Martin, how you going?
Yeah, pretty good. How are you?
Fantastic, mate. Fantastic. It's a Friday. It's been a big week, so always happy to round out a week with a chat to yourself.
Well, thanks. And look, it's a very interesting conversation we're going to have because there is a big question here and a big discussion to be had about how you successfully plan for retirement. And I guess there's a bunch of questions. When should you start it? What should you think about? And you've started to formulate some ideas around 4 L's.
That's right, mate. Yeah, absolutely. So I thought, look, obviously retirement planning is something that everybody will think about at some point, hopefully. I'd like to think so anyway. Look, a big takeaway from that is saying, okay, well, there's a number of different avenues and means to achieving success, essentially, in your retirement. And I think a plan is the grounding point, is absolutely the starting place. What does that mean, though, for people and how can they go about it? So what I've done is I've put together an article which sort of, I guess, serves as a capstone of a series of further articles, and we're diving into the 4 L's. And so if you like, we'll just quickly cover off on those now, just so people aren't left wanting. But the 4 L's: longevity, lifestyle, liquidity, and legacy, which are sort of 4 key areas that you need to consider to ensure success in your retirement planning.
Right. And I just sort of bracket those by saying, and when should you start this, right? This isn't something you should leave until you retire. This is laying the foundation. So you've got to start many years down the track. And I remember when I was a mere starting work, mid-20s or whatever it was, and somebody asked me about what are you going to do, when you're going to retire. I had to put a retirement date on my pension, right? 60 or 65. And then there's a bunch of questions. So the point there is that sometimes you don't start this thinking until it's way too late down the track.
Well, that's the biggest risk, Martin. And at the end of the day, it's a hugely important component and milestone of a person's life. And so obviously starting to think about it early, not necessarily having to do a whole lot perhaps, and certainly for people that are a lot younger and are thinking perhaps that this retirement planning piece is something left to later stage people or older people in life. There's certainly some things you can do today to look at that, and I think the article will be relevant to all age groups, even if it's just getting the conversation started with themselves and obviously with their partners as well. But look, more often than not, the 50s is where I guess the birds are flying the coop, so to speak, and you're starting to look at what the next 10 years or what you can do in the next 10 years to ensure some success for when you do decide to finish up either full-time or part-time work and do an ease into retirement as well. And so that's where going back to these 4 L's and making sure that you've covered off on those components and looking at the things that you can do now so that when you do cross the finish line, wherever that may be, you're happy with the work that you've done and the preparation you've done, rather than thinking, geez, if I had thought about this 5 years earlier, this could be a lot different where I am now.
Yeah, and that's quite an interesting observation you've made, that sort of benchmark 50 years old. My own view is that's probably quite old to start thinking about retirement planning, right? Because actually there's a couple of phases, right? There's the building the wealth pool in whatever way you want to do it, and then there's the maximization of it, and then there's the activation of it later, right? Now, all of that is a life's journey.
Oh, look, absolutely. And, one of the reasons why you get a superannuation account when you, begin work at the age of 18 is because it's crucial that, your saving strategies begin then. So you've got the most amount of time to take advantage of things like the compounding nature of investments. It's not just saying that there's always just superannuation. But going back to the age of 50, that's just in my experience when people often start.
They wake up, they suddenly realise intimations of mortality, as they say, right?
Well, this is right. Yeah, and quite often it can simply be because perhaps their parents are starting to retire or are in retirement. They've had the benefit of some experience maybe over the Christmas dinner table where people are saying, well, look, you're not getting any younger. We're in retirement now, and there's a few things we probably could have fixed if we had thought about it a bit earlier. So, I'm not going to say if you're under 50, don't worry about retirement planning, but certainly if you're in your 50s and you haven't, had a good hard think about your roadmap for success in retirement, you're not doing yourself many favours.
Right. Okay. Well, let's go through those 4 L's then, and just sort of put a little bit of colour around it, and then perhaps we'll come back in some later shows and go into another level of detail.
Absolutely, yeah. Look, the idea today was really just to sort of capstone this sort of framework, really. And so we'll kick it off. So longevity. Now that can take a number of things, and I'll certainly go into it in a lot more detail in some later shows, if of course there's some viewer demand. So feel free to let me know in the comments if you want to know more. So longevity is really, I guess, a number of things. So longevity of obviously yourself and having a bit of an idea of what sort of time frame you need to be planning for and how long you live, and I'll leave it at that. That's quite a deep topic, but obviously longevity of your funds as well, and looking at the style of investments, I guess, and what sort of cash flows you're going to be having to make sure that you're not just reverting back to say the old age pension or some sort of basic level. From a lifestyle perspective, I guess the second L, lifestyle, can take many forms as well, of course. But look, the key thing is that you've worked hard, or you will be working hard up until you retire, to enjoy it. And so having an idea of what kind of lifestyle you expect, and perhaps also your partner expects in retirement, is another crucial element in that planning piece. From there, of course, liquidity. And once again, another deep topic, but looking at being able to access the capital and the income that you need in retirement in a reliable way that ensures that it's there when you need it. You're not going to be able to go to work and earn more money, and so it's crucial that your savings and your investments can then take over and take on that mantle of making sure you've got enough funds. And then finally, of course, is legacy. And legacy is an interesting one because it changes. In my experience, it changes. Some people kick off their retirement planning saying, I need to have X amount at the remainder of my time to pass on. And for other people, and this is, life in general, is that, you might say, oh, look, my kids are going to be okay. And then as you're getting through retirement, something happens in your family and you know that you're going to need to leave behind some money to look after them. So, look, yeah, some big rocks there, and I really look forward to fleshing them out and chatting with your viewers about it.
Yeah, very interesting. And look, I've got this observation. I'm now at the age of retirement plus, right? But I'm not retired, right? And I actually think the whole concept of retirement is actually the wrong way to think about it, right? This is about a life stage transition, right? So you may not be working as hard, or you might not be working at things you don't want to do. And I'm lucky I can work at the things I really like doing.
That's why you work so hard, man.
Well, it probably is. And some people would say I'm nuts. But, for me personally, I get great personal satisfaction out of the things that I do. And that, for me, is one of the critical things that I think as you move through into those later phases of life, you should be doing the things that you get satisfaction from, that you want to do, that you enjoy doing, not the things that you have to do because you have to do them, right? And for me, retirement planning should be about enabling that, because it's fundamentally about lifestyle, and it's about your aspirations, all those things. And sometimes I think that this gets ciphered back to a financial only discussion. And it seems to me that what you're highlighting in those 4 L's and what I'm highlighting now is this is much broader. This is about, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Oh, look, absolutely. But I feel like I'm preaching a tad to the converted here, Martin. But I hope we're resonating with people that are watching the show. Look, for me, and you've nailed it. Look, the financial piece is an instant go-to for people in retirement, because everyone needs money to do the things that they want to do. The difference there, though, is that if you've got security and confidence around, the money that you've got, then what that does is open up options. And as you mentioned there, the options can be to stay working. Perhaps you just want to do something different with your life. You've been in a career for so many years and you just want to go and try something else. You might get paid for it, you might not. What having the financial flexibility does mean it takes the pressure off having to just think about working for money, and you can actually start working for yourself, and to obviously keep the wheels turning in your head, and and doing all sorts of things. Look at one of the greatest components of a role in a financial planner's life is when someone goes through retirement and they still work every day, but they might be doing things like volunteering. So they're getting out in their community, they're meeting with people, they're helping where they can. Of course, they're not being paid for it, but they don't care because they're actually fulfilling an area of their lives and adding to society, knowing that at the end of the day, they're going to be able to pay their gas bills and their utility bills, and having that security. So, look, as you say, work and finishing work can take so many different forms, but doing it on your own terms, I think, is always going to be a benefit, and desired. So.
Yeah, and the other thing I'd just add is that you don't need to, I think, fear retirement. I mean, many people, in my surveys really are very worried about it, not necessarily from the financial perspective, well, that's part of it, but simply because they don't know what they're going to do. Right, so it actually comes back to these life questions again. So I think laying some early thoughts about those life questions as part of that journey. And like I say, it's a transition, it's a journey, right? And you may not be able to articulate precisely the destination, but there are some things that you will know you will want to do. There are some things you know you won't want to do. And start planning for it early is what I think the story is, because the trouble is that if you don't think about it until suddenly you realise that next week you're no longer in work, it's too late.
Look, 100%. And as you say, look, the planning piece is crucial, but also having some introspection. And I sort of finish off the article after sort of surmising the 4 L's with, what can you do now before Tim gets back to me with the next L. And a huge component of that is the dream phase. And for anyone who's been, had a go of being in the advice or had an advisor experience, and it's done well, this is the fun part of an engagement, either with an advisor or, of course, you can just do it by yourself. It's working out the things you want to do and prioritising them, essentially. Look, people have always got things that, big rock components that they want to do in their life. It might be a Rhine River cruise, or it might be taking the family on a big holiday, or doing all sorts of bits of it. I go to holidays now because we haven't had many holidays in the last 12 months, and so I think maybe that's what I want to do. But the point of the whole thing is that by actually getting them down on paper, having a think about it, and also, of course, reflecting with a partner or somebody that's involved in your life. It could be friends as well, of course, but it's about saying, okay, well, look, these are the things that, they're going to take some time, they're going to take some planning, money, of course, as well, perhaps. And so by jotting them down, you are dramatically increasing the chances of you getting to where that is. Having them somewhere visible, you can leave them on the fridge, you can reflect on them, they can change, but if you've got them down, then you're thinking about them. If you're thinking about them, they'll probably happen.
No, that's a very good advice there, Tim. I think the final point I'll just make before we close this out is that there is this contention, particularly if you've got kids, right? How much of my estate do I want to pass down to my kids versus how much do I want to eat myself, right? That's a really interesting discussion that actually needs to be had as well, because there may be some intergenerational expectations that may not be realistic. On the other hand, most people probably will say, well, you earned it, so, enjoy it. That's a really interesting contention too.
Oh, look, absolutely. And, look, depending on how you've been brought up, and I guess, the way it all sort of works in your familial sort of circumstances, I think the key bit there, though, is that, if you know that you need to provide for people, and keeping in mind as well that there are different strategies that can be put in place, both, tax advantageous and also, I guess, from that planning and also legal side. And look, that's where you're sort of then looking at perhaps seeking the help of a professional that can do this every day and make sure that the structure's appropriate and it's going to happen for you in the right way. But if you don't have an idea of what you need, when you go to the professional, it's going to be a lot harder for them to help and plan for you. So once again, we're in the early stages of saying, okay, well, look, fleshing out, what you want as a person, whether it be 5, 10, 15 years away, or hopefully not next year, but anyway, some people leave it that late. But by having that framework of what you want, it's a recipe for an advisor or for a professional to then build for you the strategies and give you the confidence to stick to the strategies as well. So very relevant.
Well, Tim, I appreciate your time today. Very, very good conversation. I think I look forward to taking that further. I think this is a really important one, and I look forward to that. And I'm glad to see that you got the email about the blue shirt.
Yes. Well, I feel like I'm sort of developing a uniform for your show at the moment. I've got my Martin North shirt. So
exactly.
Anyway, the technology's come to the party. I finally got the white balance right as well. So you've been a great help with all of that. You're a technological wizard over here on top of everything else, Martin.
Well, I appreciate that. And just to say that if you want to take the conversation further, you can go to walktheworld.com.au. That takes you through to Nucleus Wealth, who powers it. And Tim, of course, is the head of advice at Nucleus Wealth. And he's the man to talk to if you want to take the conversation further forward.
Always happy to chat. I was trying to think, the Walk the World Collective, has it got a name yet, Martin? Is it? I was thinking, is it the Wanderers or something? Every time we talk,
we'll have to think about that. I haven't got a collective noun that's appropriate yet.
Yeah, well, maybe it sort of sounds like something that the group could provide as well, perhaps.
All right, folks, if you think of a collective noun for the Walk the Wanderers.
Well, anyway, where I was going with that is, obviously I've had a terrific amount of chats with people that watch your show and have come through the walktheworld.com.au, and I always look forward to chatting to people from your show. There's always some great things to talk about and quite varied topics to talk about as well, because your content is so varied. So.
Well, that's what it's about. Thanks, Tim. We'll look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Look forward to it. Good on you, Martin.
See ya.